myself again, but it's the only way.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Just a couple of things to say before we start. I am going to John from Jab's funeral today, hence the attire. I'm going to pay our respects to John, so I would ask everybody just to say a little prayer for John's family today. It's going to be a tough day for them. I may have to cut the show short today as well, because I've had some bad news myself. My mum has been battling cancer. She's on a critical care ward now, and I've had a phone call from the doctor today, which wasn't too good. So that's all I'm going to say. But if I do get a phone call from the hospital today, then please, forgive us if I've got to cut the show short. But that's where we'll start, Liam, with Newcastle United's game at the weekend. Another win, fantastic result. But it came at a cost. We lost Kieran Trippier.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was a weekend of mixed emotions, really, wasn't it? In terms of the match itself, such a talisman. He's been absolutely incredible since he come to the football club. A leader on the pitch, a leader off the pitch, and he'll continue to be a leader off the pitch. But that leadership, almost everything comes through Kieran Trippier, and it's really weird that of a right back, you wouldn't think a right back can control the way a team plays, and he really, really does. It's quite incredible. But what I would say, and I've tried to take the positive stance on this, is that one man doesn't make a team. He has been huge and he has been crucial. But they won that game on Saturday. Of course, he got the goal, but they played virtually 45 minutes without him. And held on and were reasonably defensively solid. I think it would be a boost to hear that Javier Manquillo was okay. I think that would be one that would really sort of help out a bit, because Emil Kraft was a bit shaky when he came on. It's fair to say. Got caught out of position a fair few times. But look, it's not all negative. Newcastle United have taken themselves in a few short weeks from going from right deep in the relegation mire, looking up, not being able to see the next win coming, not being able to see how they would ever get their heads back above the relegation zone, to now having stretched that to 4 points. It's quite an incredible position they've put themselves in. And even without Kieran Trippier, who'll be supporting from the sidelines, I think they're in a much better place. Of course, you've got that £40 million midfielder in Bruno to inject into the side. Yeah. And from all the reports I'm hearing from people in and around who see him in training every day, they're just blown away by how good this lad is, like incredibly good. So there's still that to come into the team. We've seen Dan Burn come into the team.
Big Dan Burn, as we've christened him on this show. Big Dan Burn. What a colossus, Liam, and probably one of the best. I'm saying this every show now. I say the best right back I've seen. Now, honestly, after one game, I'm not afraid to make this punt. I think he will be the best centre half we've had in many years.
I don't want to say that yet, but wow, in terms of debuts, there hasn't been many better. You could tell, and obviously, my Newcastle United writer at Newcastle World's Jordan Cronin, and he has good connections in and around sort of Dan Burn, and I nudged him yesterday and said, I bloody hope on Sunday, I bloody hope this lad's good, and we're just laughing about it. And then I then nudged him 5 minutes into the game when Burn had taken a couple of balls down on his chest, long balls, played the ball with his left foot out to the left, to the right. And you can always tell for me from a footballer the way he carries himself. And within that first 5 minutes, you could tell, look, this lad's an upgrade on what we've seen here for a while at centre-half. He's very composed, good on the ball, won everything in the air in both boxes. It's a long time since we've had defenders of that, the ability of Trippier and Burn. I would go to say it's probably one of the best defensive debuts that I've ever seen at Newcastle United. I'm struggling to think of many better. I'm not going to say he's going to be as good as Jonathan Woodgate, but that was up there with levels of debut where you look and you go, wow, he's a player. And we know he's a good player. He was a good player at Brighton, a good Premier League footballer. And it maybe does shine a little bit of a light on the dearth of quality that we've had in that department for quite some time. But it's making the players around him better. Fabian Schär looks an even better player with somebody like Burn alongside him and Trippier on the other side. And this isn't even coming on to Matt Targett, and that's one I want to point out as well, that his debut against Everton in the week was really, really good, really positive. And I think even with Trippier out, it's hard not to argue that Newcastle's defence isn't in a much, much better place, particularly down the left-hand side with Dan Burn and Matt Target. So yeah, I'm reasonably positive. And I think they've put themselves in a position now where they were constantly playing catch-up. It's now back in their hands with this week of results. And that could be Trippier's biggest contribution. Look, let's not beat around the bush here. The type of injury that it is, I hear some people suggesting 6 weeks. I think it's going to be a bit longer than that from what I've heard from sort of medical opinion. It sounds like it's going to take a little bit longer. And it could be the case that we don't see a lot more of Kieran Trippier this season, but this could have been the biggest contribution he's made, is the fact that he's contributed massively to 6 points in a week. And that 6 points took Newcastle United from looking up to looking down. And it's just a mentality thing as well. Real big mentality shift on Tyneside to go along with all the positivity that's been around off the pitch. That finally, eventually, the on the pitch performances have caught up with that general mood around St James's Park, around Newcastle United, around the new owners, the manager, etc. Eventually, the players have caught up and got up to speed with what everybody else is feeling. And I think maybe looking ahead, it might only take 15 games to go. Newcastle United might only have to win another. I mean, you look at the points tally from last season. Are the bottom three any better quality-wise than what the bottom three were last season? It's difficult to argue. What points tallies are they on total to get? 30 points might keep you up this season. Newcastle have 21 already. I would suggest out of the last 15 games, another 4 wins plus a couple of draws is probably guaranteed to keep you up this season. And I think looking at the team, even without Kieran Trippier, looking at the way the team plays, I mean, look, they don't look like scoring a whole lot of goals. Let's not mess around there. They aren't creating a load of chances, particularly from open play. But I think there's enough in this team now to suggest that they'll steal and get those 3 to 4 wins plus a handful of draws to make sure that they steal.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the questions on Twitter. We often put a shout out when we're doing these early morning shows. Rich Joblin asks a question which I suggested, I reckon it will happen anyway. He just says, do we expect Trippier to be in the changing room, on the bench for games, given his importance? I would say yes, Liam. He'll be in and around that squad each and every game that he misses.
I think you're spot on, Steve. I think he will be. I think he's just that kind of character. It's infectious. The attitude that he's brought to Newcastle United, it's quite intriguing watching him, and there might be fans out there who do exactly the same. But just pre-kickoff, the way he talks to everybody, sort of speaks to, drills it, gets everybody up for it, and he makes sure he, fist pumps every single player on the pitch, and he's just a leader. You can see that he's leading by example from the way he plays, and he's leading with his character as well. And I think it would be a loss to not have that in and around the changing room moving forward. He can't, of course, make an impact during the 90 minutes, but he definitely can do a lot more around that. It's always been interesting as well that there is a very close relationship there with Eddie Howe, so it wouldn't surprise me if Howe does want him around, because he is his general on the pitch, constantly in conversation with Howe in the dugout, telling him about certain players, certain things that need adjusted. He's obviously got a good football brain, and he's a leader. So I think it would be a loss not to have him around in and around the place, and I think he will be.
Yeah, okay. Next question is from Stuart Taylor. He says, are you concerned that we still aren't creating chances from open play? Me personally, I'm not. Liam, I think that, I think Newcastle just have to make do and mend with what they've got, and they've got some good midfield players, and they can create chances, they can score goals. I think set pieces will be crucial. We've got big Dan Burn, you've got, Wood, who again, is struggling still to find form, but I'm sure he will. It's not all about goals from open play. As long as we get goals and we keep goals out at the other end, that's gonna keep us in the position above the relegation zone.
Yeah, quite a couple of interesting points there. I'll come on to maybe the importance of Wood, or increased importance of Wood in a moment, but going to answering the original question, am I concerned by it? I have noticed it. I have noticed that Newcastle United in the last few games don't look like a team creating chances and scoring. Don't look like scoring a whole lot of goals. Of course, they got 3 against Everton, but again, they didn't create a whole load of chances prior to going 3-1 up. Didn't create any chances at all against Aston Villa, and Leeds was a funny game where they could have in the second half maybe got a couple more goals than what they actually did. I'm not overly concerned, being brutally honest. I don't think it's going to take a whole lot more than what Newcastle United are producing now to get results to stay up. I think they'll be fine, and I think you make a really important point, Steve, that set pieces are a big thing in football and will have become a much bigger thing with Dan Burn. It was interesting seeing him set up for defensive ones that he didn't have a marker. It was almost just he was the man to go and win the corners, and he did do that on a number of occasions. Interestingly, in an attacking sense, I can see him being a target, and I can see him nipping a couple of goals himself between now and the end of the season if he plays every week. But yeah, I think Chris Wood's a really it's been a talking point in Newcastle United, and I've been certainly wanting to talk about it, that I was less than impressed by his first 2 games. I remember saying, I think it was the first 2 games would have been Watford and Leeds. I wasn't that impressed by him. I would actually argue in the last 2, Everton and Aston Villa, that I have been impressed by him.
13 wins out of 15 from aerial challenges, Liam. The stats don't back up some people's criticism.
Yeah, so I think it's the type of player. I think maybe he does. He's not an upgrade on Callum Wilson. I think that's the first thing we've got to get out there. In my opinion, no. In my opinion, Callum Wilson is a better, more rounded centre forward than Chris Wood. But they're totally different kind of players, and one to do the other's job isn't going to work like that. They are totally different. Could complement each other were they ever able to play together. But Chris Wood, for me, one thing I've noticed in the last 2 games is his hard work, his pressing. He's really, and he's always an outlet. Yes, sometimes it doesn't stick, but I think a lot of that graft up front makes up for some of the stuff that maybe St. Maximin doesn't do. And I've actually noticed that quite a bit, that he's a very good presser. Doesn't give any defender in the back 4 or 5, whoever you're playing against, a minute's peace. And I thought it's been really noticeable to me in the last 2 games. And yes, I think he maybe does lack bits of quality in certain areas of his game, but I think he's been a vital cog in the wheel in getting these last couple of results because of the work, the tireless work he's put in.
He gives ASM that opportunity as well. You know, while people are occupied by Chris Wood, it gives ASM a bit more freedom, doesn't it, to do what he does?
Yeah, it does. And I described him on Saturday in many ways, and this is going to sound really negative, but it wasn't meant in a negative way. It was almost like a blunt tool, like a blunt weapon. So he's clearly got strengths, and the strengths are get the ball up there. He wins it all the time. Flick-ons, he wins them. Newcastle United, Fraser and St. Maximin were not taking advantage of that for large periods of the game. And it was only, I would say, towards the end of the game, the last game, that they started running off him, started going beyond. And that's almost what they need to start doing a little bit more of, because Chris Wood wins the majority of his headers and flick-ons. And if they gamble, which I think they start to realise, look, we can start gambling with this guy, they'll get a lot more success and you'll get Newcastle further and further up the park. But Gary Neville made some really interesting points in his Sky Sports podcast the other day, where he talked about him being a fullback and saying he would love to have a Chris Wood because it's somebody you can always hit. He's always an outlet. And that's the kind of thing that Wilson doesn't always do that well, because that's not his game. So it'd be nice at some point to maybe see the two play together. But injuries, of course, with Callum Wilson, as we've seen with Kieran Trippier recently, and just seem to have held them back somewhat. But Newcastle United are in a much, much stronger position than they were. And I feel reasonably confident, despite the lack of goals from open play and lack of chances created, that we will start getting, scoring goals and gambling and running off. There is another player who does that kind of thing, and I think is starting to come into his own, and I'm really pleased to see it, because I've been a critic of Joe Willock on this show on numerous occasions. Didn't seem like a guy with the weight of the world on his shoulders. His demeanour didn't come across amazingly great when he wasn't playing very well. Looked like a lad carrying a lot of responsibility and a lot of weight because of those performances maybe last season. And the expectation that he was the only player signed in the summer and didn't really have a transformative effect on the midfield like he did when he came in January. So I think he's another player who can use Chris Wood as a point to get beyond and run off, because he does that really well. He's good at hitting spaces and hitting gaps, and I think we've seen from halfway point at Leeds, I think we've seen a bit of the Joe Willock that we seen last season, and I was really impressed by him on Sunday. I think not only was he carrying the ball well, he was doing the bits where he was winning it and closing gaps, and chasing, and he can be a real threat, and just add something different to that midfield on the right hand side. And of course, you've got Joe Linton, who for me has been really, really good. And I think John Joe Shelby again has stepped up his levels in recent
We won
games.
the midfield battle, didn't we? We really, really frustrated Aston Villa's game plan.
Yeah. And we didn't expect that, because they've got quite a talented midfield. I think most people looked at it and thought that would be a battle Newcastle would lose, and they didn't actually. I think Joe Linton's been a revelation. He really has. And I know we've said that a lot of times, but the way how high he wins the ball up the pitch for Newcastle United consistently, and he's the one who breaks from the midfield. Say when Chris Wood does press and maybe St. Maximin and Fraser don't go, it's like a selective press that they have. It's normally Joe Linton who breaks from that midfield and closes down the gaps, and then he closes again and he closes again. And it can't go unnoticed. It can't be people must see it, but the work rate that he's got and the effort levels from that midfield, breaking out from the work he's asked to do in this system, is unbelievable. What a amazing fitness levels, amazing resilience to tackles, knocks, bangs. He gets them all the time. Strong, physical midfielder. I know Eddie Howe was keen not to call him a midfielder because he doesn't really see him as that, but he is effectively playing a very midfield-like role. I see fans put their best 11s together. I keep putting Joe Linton as a defensive midfielder. He definitely is not a defensive midfielder. He plays reasonably high up. He doesn't play deep, and there's a reason for that. But he wins the ball high. He's really the most advanced of that midfield three, and does a fantastic job doing it. And long may it continue. On paper, you would never say that Newcastle midfield should get the better of Aston Villa's, because they are a good side. This is the one thing that's very easy to do, and I know I'm waffling here, Steve. Tell us to shut up if you think so.
No, keep going, mate. People enjoy hearing your opinion, Liam.
I think we've seen from Everton. So Everton went and beat Brentford, then Everton went and won it at the weekend, right? We've seen a lot of criticism of how bad were Everton. That's all we heard, right? It wasn't anything to do with the fact Newcastle went and beat them. It was all, well, Everton, we were dead happy, but it was also, how bad were they? I didn't think they were that bad on the day. Dele Alli took a load of stick. Yeah, he was nowhere up to speed, but you can see that there's a player there. Van der Beek came on. It started actually for maybe 20 minutes. That second half started really making things tick over. This isn't a bad Everton team, as they proved at the weekend. And Aston Villa are exactly the same. Newcastle United made Aston Villa look really poor. Steven Gerrard was amazingly frustrated after that game. And this wasn't because Aston Villa had a bad game, because Aston Villa are a good side. Newcastle United did not allow them the spaces and the pockets to play. Philip Coutinho maybe had 15 minutes in the second half period where he started picking balls up, maybe just after Trippier went off. Apart from that, there was no pockets for him to play in, and that's what he'd done the week previous when he sort of tore it up, and he had done for the first 2 or 3 games of his period. Is that he dropped into pockets. Newcastle United's midfield and the fullbacks, etc., didn't allow players like him to drop into pockets, or Bundia, who yes, he wasn't great against us earlier this season and wasn't great again on. But I remember back to, I think, Steve Bruce's second or third game in charge, and down there at Norwich, it was the Emile Bundia show. It just took us to pieces. But this setup, this formation, isn't the open Steve Bruce reign, and isn't the start of the Eddie Howe reign. This is a very different, looks a lot more organised Newcastle United side, because they've played Leeds. The 3 games is Leeds, Everton and Aston Villa. And they're the first 3 games in a long time that Newcastle United, for me, haven't gifted the opposition 5 and 6 excellent opportunities to score, either from individual errors or just really poor defensive shape. I think these last 3 games, we might just start to be seeing the defensive discipline and shape that many said Eddie Howe couldn't possibly bring. Newcastle United didn't play like that. They look a lot more organised now in the last 3 games than I've seen them in a long time. And again, long may it continue.
Yep, here. Okay, let's get through a couple of quick fire questions on Twitter before we start coming to the chat, because the chat is lively today and want to get as many people's opinions through as possible. Any update on Marjed Al-Sura's appointment as a Newcastle director? Yeah, there was a lot of Twitter talk on that, and it looked as if he was going to be appointed. Is that something you know about, Liam?
It was all very strange, actually. So on his LinkedIn at the time, he actually had it posted that he's a director at Newcastle since July last year, which made absolutely no sense given the takeover happened in October. Those LinkedIn updates were swiftly removed in the days after that. It kind of started getting a bit of momentum on Twitter that he was set to be a director. Of course, there was a report in one of the national papers, and it was something that a good colleague of mine, and I won't say where from, but did speak to somebody and got the word that there'd been absolutely no change, and as a present, there was still only 3 directors at Newcastle United, one of which we know is Amanda Staveley. I I'd not heard anything new on this one. It wouldn't surprise me if he was, but I don't believe that's something that has happened yet.
Yeah.
Like I say, it could happen, and it wouldn't be a surprise to see more Saudi influence on the board, given the size of the majority shareholding. But
Okay.
at the present,
Colour Coach asks, is there any update on Wilson's return date?
no, unfortunately not. I think the best updates on Wilson's return date is just listen to his BBC podcast with Mikel Antonio. I think he gives the best update in there. So I'd probably just say keep an eye on that one. It sounded to me the last time I heard anything was that it wasn't going to be a quick thing, and it probably looks like as we suspected when he first did it, given the nature of where it was, that it was going to be a long termer. And I think there hasn't really been, apart from maybe a glimmer of hope early on in January that it might be sooner than expected. I think the thinking around the injury since then is that we'll probably be lucky to see Trippier and Wilson in that final week, 2 weeks of the season. I would suspect. I would guess that. I think we play Man City and Arsenal and Burnley. I think the last 3 games. I think we're probably looking at having those 2 back for then, which is a long stretch, 12 games, but they just have to find a way, and we're not asking them to find a way of producing European or Champions League form. We'll only need it probably, like I say, in the 15 games. If we win 3 of those and pick up another 4 draws or something like that, I mean that's a lot of losses. If they can do something like that, they'll probably stay up with it. So, I mean, realistically, that's all we need, and that's all I'm looking at. That, of course, everybody wants to climb the table and you want to keep that positivity going. But this season was always, from the minute that the owners took over, it was just always going to be treading water, really. It was always going to be just getting through this season, and then we'll light the blue touch paper in the summer, which I still expect to happen should Newcastle United stay up.
Yeah, okay. Next question on Twitter is about ground redevelopment. It's funny, this has come up a couple of times now because Newcastle are winning games. We've got the takeover. We're hoping that we'll stay up and get the get the big guns out in the summer and bring some big players in. Lee Milne's question is, in time, if they do go ahead and extend the Gallagher, do you think the work could be completed in the close season? If not, do you think it will reduce the capacity by much until the work completed? I don't think you're going to know the answer to that one, but let's talk about the ground being developed. Do you think that's what the owners would focus on, redeveloping the ground? Or do you think they would maybe put it out to the supporters? I think we know the answer. They would put it out to the supporters. They would ask for opinions. They wouldn't just go and do something. Do you think it would be better if we built the ground somewhere else? Try to build it on the town moor, or try to build it on Leazes Park, see what kind of opposition, or build it down next to the Tyne where the site of the arena is at the minute? What's your views on this?
Firstly, I believe that it's a priority, which I think the question was kind of getting at. Is it going to be something that happens? I would suspect there's a lot of other things that are a priority ahead of that. Look, I don't think it's going to be something that isn't addressed in the next couple of years in terms of what they want to do and their plans, but I don't foresee it being something that will change immediately. I think it'll take some time. I think the training ground is actually a bigger priority, because the levels and steps that they want to take over the next few years, they need to make sure that they've got the infrastructure behind the scenes to attract the type of players that take you to those levels. And Newcastle don't have that at the moment. So I think that's one that will take a priority above the likes of extending the stadium or moving to a new stadium. Look, I could be totally wrong, but I think you just got to use a bit of common sense here. That yes, of course they're going to sell out and they're going to continue selling out. But I don't think a really expensive 5 to 10,000 upgrade on the stadium is at the very, very top of the priority list. What do I think they should do? I don't want to see Newcastle United move from St James's Park. I don't, but I'm also a realist. I really don't want to see Newcastle United move from St James's Park. That's my heart speaking, but my head says differently. I think if Newcastle United are going to develop, like I say, to the levels that I expect them to over the next 5 to 10 years, then I think it's probably Newcastle United will quite easily outgrow St James's Park, and it just depends on the costings. Can you develop that ground enough to the levels that you want to increase revenue enough? Because ultimately, this isn't going to be something that people like to talk about and like to hear, but one way you do increase revenue, and it probably will come to that, is increase ticket prices, especially when demand outweighs supply. So I think that is inevitable. I think as Newcastle move up to the levels, you will see ticket prices increase, and that's just the way things go. But I think I think they can. I think that there is a will there to increase capacity, but whether it'll happen in the short term is another thing altogether. I think there's bigger priorities in building the rest of the infrastructure of the football club. I think Newcastle United, like I say, could easily outgrow St James's Park, and it may prove more beneficial to build a whole new stadium. And really, obviously, I've got the heartstrings thing too, but if you were to say, look, Newcastle United are literally fighting for titles and Champions Leagues, and one of the offshoots of that would be, look, we love St James's Park, but we need a bigger stadium. We need to build a purpose-built 70k ground somewhere else, and it would be massively cheaper, and we could do it much better, and it would be a much better match day experience for all of you people going and paying good money to go, than it would to gut and revamp and extend the current site. You know what? I think most people, if they put their common sense head on, won't disagree and won't kick up a fight. But I get it. I don't want to leave St James's Park. It's got that heart pull. But let's be realistic about this. If you were to be, it's about bang for buck. If you were to get more for your money, as in you pay your season ticket and you actually get a really, a much nicer seat with a much better view and much better. Yeah, exactly. A much better place to spend some time where you can have a drink, something nice to eat, just a better expanse rather than feel like you may be going to an airport hangar half the time with a portable TV, nailed up to the wall.
Little changes are happening though. I had this conversation with Holly and her dad and Roger when we were walking up the ground the other day, and you're having a second look at things and you're going, has that been painted? Is that new? Yeah. You're looking at things. They are making little differences, and I think just something as simple as putting another, big screen, but getting two big screens as opposed to, as you say, a portable TV for VAR decisions, for replays and stuff. The tannoy is deafening now in the ground compared to what it was. It's little things, isn't it, Liam?
They do need new. I think it needs a whole new sound system, to be honest, because I think they've just cranked up the old one, but it's a bit crackly.
Found the volume button, which probably the bit of plastic that goes over it was probably knocked off years ago. It's never been replaced. Now they've stuck it on. It's like, that's what that is.
So no, I think they will, and they'll make it'll be a more positive match day experience for Mike Ashley not being there in terms of little bits and bobs, and I think there'll be more of that work in the summer. But it would be a surprise to me, just using common sense, if it was anywhere near the top of the immediate priority list, because I think, like I say, I think there's a lot of other things that need addressed. But only when Newcastle United are making those huge strides forward in English football and potentially back in the European scene, I think they would then consider building a brand new stadium or
training ground first, says Pablo, and I think he's right. You know, you've got to focus on what is going to, what is going to bring people in, what is going to attract people. Well, of course, the team. And if you look after the team and you invest in the team and you create a great team, a team that wins things, then you will get people wanting to come. And that, that is the way you do it. Okay, last question on Twitter before we come into the chat. I do think we've got one more from Robertson. He says, would you fetch Bruno into the midfield for the next game? Now, you were waxing lyrical about him at the start of the programme. Is it time to unleash the Bruno?
Not for me, no. And I might surprise, but I don't really see the point in trying to fix something that isn't broke. I think the midfield, as you said, Steve, won the midfield battle against a good Aston Villa side who win most midfield battles against teams. I think I would probably decide to keep it the same. And there is always that. I think it'd be nice to see him get a little bit more game time. I think West Ham, I think a lot of people are overlooking it. I think West Ham will be tough. I think their forward line's quite impressive. You've seen someone like Jared Bowen, the type of goals that he can score. They're a good side, West Ham. And I think it'll be tough down there. We do have a decent record. West Ham's always a good game. We feel like we can go there and get a result at the weekend. And I feel that too, but I think it'll be tough. And I think we might see Bruno a little bit earlier. I think we might see a good half an hour from Bruno at the weekend. And I think that'll only do him wonders. And we'll get to really see the little flashes of brilliance that we've seen so far. We'll get to see a lot more of that in the team. He's going to have to make a few changes to the team. I think Target will be one that'll come straight back in for Manquillo. Hopefully Manquillo's fit just to switch on the other side. Jamal Lascelles will likely be fit again. Be interesting to see whether he sees a way of bringing him back into the side. Personally, I don't think he will. I think he'll probably stick with the two centre-halves that he has to make. But with all that in mind, and what I'm getting at here is, if he's having to make lots of changes at the back, I don't really see why he would then try to fix something that wasn't broke further forward. And I think he'll only try and fix that when he sees a problem in that midfield. And I think you can argue that the arrival of Bruno has almost brought up the levels of other players in that midfield. And there is a real competition for places. And inadvertently, while not really playing, he's already the level of midfield ability has already risen because of his arrival. And he's probably only played 6 minutes of football. So all positive, and we've always got that up the sleeve that he will be injected into this midfield and will instantly up the levels again. From the reports that I'm hearing from behind the scenes.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Okay, we'll dive into the chat. There's plenty of people on this morning. Thank you for all your support and all your kind words. Does mean a lot. Okay, John says, morning everyone. Should we be concerned that one member of the squad, a bit of a hero of mine already, might get hacked off with not starting games? He's a potential superstar in the making. I think you mean Bruno, and ultimately with Bruno, he's a consummate professional, and he will have been told you've got to earn your place, and I think that's positive. I think that's why we've seen an improvement in players across the board, John, in the sense that people like Shelby are raising their game now because there's competition for places, and I mentioned this yesterday on the show on the 5-minute rant that Willock will have got such a boost in the fact that Eddie Howe has said, the place is still yours. Bruno's come in and he's still getting the game, Liam. And that's great man management. And that's why Willock's, has improved. Leeds, Everton, Aston Villa, his performances have gradually improved, haven't they? And that's great management.
It is. And I think it's sad really because, and this won't go down very well because I know he divides opinion and I've had enough of him at times and I flip between, different opinions on Sean Longstaff in particular, but given the performance he put in at Leeds, to have not really seen a minute of football since then has been quite unfair almost. And Eddie Howe actually said that as well in his press conference recently, that said, look, it's just been difficult. So I think you're seeing an upping of levels, a real upping of levels in that midfield department. And I think it'll only continue to go in that way. I don't think Bruno's going to be too upset. Every player's upset. Every player wants to play. Every single one, no matter their ability, they want to play on the Saturday. But I think he'll understand the situation. And I think his time will come. And when it comes, I expect him to take it. And I think Eddie Howe does too, because that's the thing. At the moment, when he's got midfielders who are performing up at their best ability, he's got 3 midfielders at the moment who are at the top of their ability. Bruno's probably already above that ability. and he'll come in and inject that straight in when he gets the chance. And I suspect it won't be West Ham unless there's an injury. I think an injury could open the door for him. But I think it's impossible as a manager to drop Joe Willock when he's putting in the type of performances that he is. And again, John Joe Shelby again up these levels and was putting out fires and mopping things up and winning tackles and spraying balls around. And I thought he was excellent. But yeah, I think that there will be a part to play. All of them. As I mentioned, Sean Longstaff there, he'll have a part to play between now and the end of the season because injuries and illness and whatever are inevitable between now and May. And I think every player in this squad will have to step up and really perform to make sure that Newcastle United stay in this division and unlocks what could be a really bright future for this football club.
Yeah, John says, can't see Longstaff having a future here after summer signings. Look, this is progress, I'm afraid. And, if you don't take a chance, and people who've been in and around Newcastle have had plenty of chances, such as Almiron, such as Longstaff, had that chance to impress Howe. It's up to him to pick a team and pick a winning team. And let's face it, the last 3 games, he's been very good at that. Scott says, if Lascelles is fit for Saturday, do you see him coming back into the starting 11? Now, this is an interesting one. We discussed this last night as well. Lascelles is still captain. Trippier obviously took the armband over at the weekend, whilst Lascelles was ill. Who do you go for in your back four? I think if Manquillo is fit, Manquillo at right back, Target at left back, Big Dan Burn alongside Shaw. That would be my back four. I don't think Lascelles comes back in.
Yeah, that's my opinion too. I think again, I was talking about midfielders and players producing certain levels of performances. I don't see how you could take either Share or Burn out of that side from the performance that those guys put in. They were absolutely brilliant as a pairing, really, really good. And until one of those lets their guard slip a little bit and drops performance, or there is an injury in one of those two players, I think the position's theirs. If they keep playing like that, that will be the centre-half partnership between now and the end of the season. I see no doubt. Like I say, unless there's a major dip in form or an injury. Eddie Howe does like Jamal Lascelles a lot. Does like him. Does rate him. Thinks he's a good player. Thinks he's a good leader. And does think he's got a big part to play at this football club. But I think it will be an impossible decision, given the words that he said recently about not dropping players and keeping players in form, that I just don't see, using his own rhetoric and his own theories, that I don't see how he takes either of those two players out of the team. And that brings in the other idea, does he change a formation and turn to a 3 with the injuries that he's got at the back and things like that? Again, that's something that I would find quite surprising, having worked so well over the last 3 games in this particular system, in this way of playing, how tight they've been, how few chances they've given away. And there are still players, albeit of a lesser level. For example, if Manquillo is out, Target comes in, and you probably just have to play Kraft at right back. I don't see, when he's got a right back in the squad to play, why he would change the whole system, which has been working so well. So I would be very surprised if he goes to a 3 and incorporates somebody like Lascelles or does that because of the injuries that they've got in the full-back positions. I think hopefully Manquillo's okay. Ligament damage, it's impossible to know how long that'll be, but he might be out for a few weeks if it's not a huge one. But he could be all right. It might have been just some bruising. It might be just a little bit of a nick or a knock, and hopefully he's all right. But if not, I would suspect it'll be Emil Kraft would come in at right back, because that's what he's in the squad for. He's going to have to probably play him between now and the end of the season. So this is what you have a squad for. You have to bring these players and you have to trust that they'll fit in and do a job. And Emil Kraft is, for every decent performance, and there have been a few actually decent performances from him, there are some often awful ones in there as well. Shows the level that he is. He's probably a championship footballer in my opinion. But they'll just need him to do a job until Manquillo comes back, and then Manquillo will have to do the job until Trippier comes back. And I don't see him changing the formation and going back to the original question, because I've gone around the houses, is that I don't see Lascelles being shoehorned in for the sake of ruining a system or taking out players who are banging form.
Mark says we've got to put a word in for Ryan Fraser as well. He's totally new, man, under Howe compared to Bruce. So good to see such an upturn. Yeah, I mean, I said last night, you owed us this, mind, because he was stinking. It seemed as if his attitude was stinking. It was just awful to watch. But you know what? He's been a revelation, and talk of him getting picked for Scotland again.
Yeah, which would be a big thing, really, because he did. Let's not beat around the bush. We all know what he did. He had to do it as well. He basically put Newcastle United massively before he did his country, Scotland, because I think he saw that this was his new manager. This was a huge opportunity for him to secure his future at Newcastle United. And you know what? With the performances that he put in, the favour that he carries with Eddie Howe, because of course it didn't end well at Bournemouth between the two of them, but they've long gone past that, and you can see that he's a player who really wants to play and believes in his manager. He left somewhere, had a manager like Eddie Howe, and he only had Steve Bruce in between. He left Eddie Howe, who then left Bournemouth after they'd got relegated. Then had Steve Bruce, and I think there's been a bit of a realization when he watched his interview last week that he was like, "Oh, I don't really want to say about stuff that's gone before," but I think there's a realization that that there is levels to this game, and the type of coaching and organisation that Eddie Howe brings to the training ground compared to what Steve Bruce does is just night and day, chalk and cheese. And I think that's what I took from the Ryan Fraser interview last week, that it's about levels in this game, and Steve Bruce is nowhere near.
Yeah, David R says Dan Burns sensational. His ability to clear headers with accuracy stood out to me. Lascelles usually wins headers, but they land at the opposition in dangerous areas. Burn looking like a bargain buy. I have to agree. I mentioned that last night as well. That just the clearances going to your own players. It's a basic, but it's something that he did really, really well. So yeah, we've already touched on that. Got to be honest as well, Liam. Do you remember when Eddie Howe came in? The criticism of a lot of the fans who didn't want Eddie Howe was that defensively his record is atrocious, and yet he's turning the defence into the strongest part of the team because he's got to at this moment in time.
Yeah, the organisation. I know I hinted at that earlier. That he'll not organise this team defensively. It's got all the players you need going forward. But you know what? What they've done is he's reversed that, and we're now no longer talking about this short blanket, the Rafa Benitez short blanket. This blanket's got longer, hasn't it? We're actually a team where we're capable of winning games, and we're also capable of keeping it tight at the other end. And Gary Neville, again, to go back, because I listened to it and I thought it was an excellent analysis, the type of football punditry that everybody cries out for. In his podcast on Sky Sports this weekend, and he was at St James's Park on Sunday, he talked in depth about how there is a bravery about this Newcastle United side, which didn't exist under that defensive Rafa Benitez formation. And he seemed to argue that this is a much better version, as in they still got that defensive solidity, but can also still beat teams. And I think I tend to agree, to be honest, only on the last three games. Potentially the Manchester United one. There was that wobble against the rabbit in the headlights performance against Watford when they went in front, and there was also the Cambridge debacle in the middle of that as well. But yeah, I think they do. They look like a team who can do it both ways. They can do the defensive stuff and look solid, but also hit teams with dangerous players like St Maximin, who, by the way, was excellent, unbelievable. St Maximin, the best version of St Maximin against Everton. And he was really poor. I thought he was really poor against Aston Villa. Everything he tried didn't come off. And Newcastle United still won. And how often have we said an injury to St Maximin or a poor St Maximin performance, and it defines Newcastle United's results? Well, St Maximin had a really poor game. Of all the players in the team, he was probably one of the poorest. And Newcastle United still ground out and they still won 1-0. So for me, I think there's been big steps forward in terms of mentality, in terms of confidence. It was a crisis of confidence. They didn't have any. They didn't know how to win games. Now they seem capable of winning games. I do think there are slight criticisms. Slight criticism for me would maybe be, does Eddie Howe, and this is a slight criticism, it's not a big one, does he let games drift too much? I'd like to see him be a little bit more proactive in terms of substitutions and things like that, and trying to not just react when things go badly, but maybe try to stop them before they go bad. And that was the criticism of the Watford game. I do think there were periods in Everton against Everton. I do think there were periods against Aston Villa where change could have come earlier just to arrest the decline, which was obvious in the game. But look, it's a minor criticism. And when Newcastle United are winning games, it's hard to be critical of the decisions the manager takes, because ultimately it was a very good week for Eddie Howe. He got the key decisions and key selection decisions correct, and he brought the right players in at the right time in terms of starting games. And I expect he'll continue to do that, and Bruno will be the next one.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah, it's great. It's great time to be a Newcastle fan at the moment. It really is. It's, everything that was going against us is now coming back as well. VAR as well. I mean, that was an amazing turnaround. It seemed to take for ages, but we got the result with that. Let's talk about goalkeepers. And this is another thing. I mean, I think we all had our hearts in our mouths when we'd had those injuries with Manquillo and Trippier, and then Dubravka went down, and we know it was a bad injury, know it was difficult. I've said on this show before that I feel we should get a really good keeper in the summer as well. I mean, what's your views on that, Liam? Because obviously, we've got goalkeepers. Darlow has played Premier League football. He's done okay. He's not great, but what's your view on the goalkeeping scenario? Would you bring one in the summer?
Yeah, I think they will. I think they look for a goalkeeper who's maybe a little bit more comfortable with the ball, a little bit more confident. I think Martin Dubravka has looked like a goalkeeper lacking in confidence, I would say, over the last few weeks, but hasn't had a whole lot to do recently. I think has sort of grown in confidence a little bit because of the solidity that's been brought in front of him. And look, I'm a big fan of Martin Dubravka. I think he's been an excellent goalkeeper for Newcastle United and will continue to do so. I've got no doubt between now and the end of the season. But what I will say is that do I think Newcastle United can upgrade in that department? Yes. And I suspect they probably will. I think the obvious one that most people are talking about in it, there is a very keen interest there on both sides, player and Newcastle United, is Dean Henderson. And I suspect that'll be a move that's probably revisited in the summer. We're talking about an England international goalkeeper who's probably going to be available between 20 and 30 million pounds. I think we'll see that move probably come to fruition in the summer, I would suspect.
Yeah. Tom, thank you for your support. Hit the likes, please. Hit the likes. It does help the algorithm. David R says, not sure if it's been mentioned yet, but we are 4th in the current form guide, past 5 games. We will be going to West Ham looking to get 3 points. How refreshing. Well, Steve Bruce was happy with a 0-0 last night. Yeah, the form table, everything is looking positive. Paul, look, at the moment the Beardsley videos are not going to go up. We did put a Peter Beardsley video up. It managed to get some really good views, but understandably, Peter's not too keen on stuff going onto YouTube at times, and we've taken it down for now. His attitude may change in the future, but I think there's a few issues which Peter has with just stuff going out on YouTube, and I understand that and I respect that. So that is why it won't be going up for the foreseeable future. Swap Darlow for Nick Pope, says Pablo.
I think he's a good goalkeeper. Yeah, really good goalkeeper. Could be one to look at. It's not one I've heard, but yeah, I do rate him as a goalkeeper too. Yeah.
Tom says, how does the under-23 format work after they lost last night in the competition, with it being the group stage?
I think they're still through to the last 16. I think they were through anyway. I think in terms of the group. So I don't know. I'm not. Look, you're probably asking the wrong man. I don't really cover the 23s much at all, but if ever, these days. But I think they're through. I think they're through the last 16 of that whatever competition it was last night.
Yeah, Geordie Tune for life. This crossed my mind. I must be honest. On Sunday, I thought there was a little bit of gamesmanship going on by Newcastle. We're starting to get very good at that, I've noticed. Do you think Dubravka stopped play deliberetely because we were under pressure at the time and it took the sting out of Villa? I certainly thought he got a knock, but he was down a lot longer than I thought, and I think there was a little bit of that going on Sunday, wasn't there?
Yeah, possibly. And I think we probably could have been playing till 5 o'clock if the referee added on all of the actual stoppages in that game. Of course, we had the unfortunate incidents in the stand. We had a couple of stoppages for that. We also had, there was injury. There was lots of injuries and players down. Honestly, I think in between the VAR decisions also was a big difference. One of them, it was either the penalty free kick, which we eventually scored from, or the Ollie Watkins goal was 4 minutes. 4 minutes between the incident and the decision. I think we only seen 5 minutes added on either half. I think it was 10 minutes added on the whole game. Realistically, it probably should have been 20 minutes, given the amount of stoppages that there were in that game. But look, we'll take it, and that's football. That's the way it works. You never get the time back that you probably should in any game that you play. But no, I don't know if Dubravka did it. I didn't feel that at the time. But you never know with Dubravka. He's had that many injuries recently that it wouldn't surprise us if it was a genuine one. But he maybe just took a bit longer over it.
Yeah. Yes, they are through to the next stages. The under-23 says Geordie Toomba Life. Nick Pope, Vidal, Sel, Dubravka. I think you need to have a new goalkeeper. I agree. Dubravka had a few glances to the bench. Clever play, says John. Bruno learning English today and saying it's difficult. Great to see him learning English though. Again, that's what he needs to do. Hopefully with a little bit of Geordie as well would be good. Another great show. Thank you very much, Keith. And yes, don't forget to hit the likes and subscribe. Don't forget as well, you can be a member. Thank you for the donation today. As I say, that goes in the pot when we have our two dues, the summer and the winter do, and everyone who contributes to the show has a free night on us. So if you do want to join and become a member, please feel free to do that. We've got some great. So we've got some great followers, some great subscribers, and it is good to have so many people following the show on a weekly basis, still doing 7 shows a week. Okay, Newcastle going to West Ham then, Liam. And it's an early start for us who are on the road, going on the train or whatever. And it's a 12:30 kick-off. It's live on BT Sports. All 3,000 away tickets have been sold. I've got one of them. Looking forward to it. A broken bone in the foot means that Trippier misses out. He joins Matt Ritchie, Callum Wilson on the sidelines. No news on Manquillo yet. Matt Targett is available again, though, after having to sit that one out against Villa because it was against his parent club. Federico Fernandez is getting closer to a return, we are told. It is also assumed that Jamal Lascelles will have recovered from the illness that kept him out of the game and the win against Aston Villa. As for West Ham, they salvaged a point against Leicester with a 2-2 draw. Kurt Zouma, who's been in the headlines for all the wrong reasons, was available to play, but then decided not to play because he said he was ill. So unknown illness, and we're not sure whether he will be playing at the weekend. West Ham have won more points away from home this season, which is interesting. And Toon Statu, of course, on the Three Amigos will give us a few more stats on that game. Referee is Chris Kavanagh. VAR, which was switched on at the weekend, was Gerard Gillette. And as I've already mentioned, it is live on BT Sports. So we've talked a little bit about the team, Liam, and what we expect. What are you expecting for this game? And bearing in mind, it has been in recent years quite a happy hunting ground for Newcastle United.
Yeah, well, games against West Ham, Tottenham, the type of games I've said on here before that you do look forward to. They do have a bit of spice, a bit of excitement, goals, good chance of result, home or away for Newcastle United. So, yeah, I think we go there with confidence. We go there without the weight of pressure that was maybe there if we were going a week ago. And I think we'll give a decent account of ourselves. But it's one of those games where West Ham are a better side than us. The league table tells you that. They're fighting for the European places while we're fighting for our lives. So I think, if Newcastle go and lose there isn't much lost. Of course, depending on results elsewhere. It's probably the games after that where Newcastle go to Brentford in a week's time and have Brighton at home are the two games that I'm particularly looking at saying, I would hope we can get 4 points from those two games. If I look as a collective, I've said this before, I look at these next 3 games, and if Newcastle United can win one, draw one, lose one in the next 3, I think they'll be in a really good place. With 12 games to go on, 25 points, I think you're probably only looking at maybe, like I say, you might only need 32, 33 points this year to stay up, guaranteed, without having to. That might even mean you don't have any last day drama. So I think if they can win one, draw one, lose one, the next 3. And I think they'll be in a decent-ish place heading to that final 12 games of the season.
Yeah, Alan Thompson says, are any other players banned? Yeah, there was a lot of people talking about the yellow card scenario. They aren't, are they? I didn't think that was the case, but I couldn't comment 100% because I wasn't sure on the card count. But for my information, no suspensions coming, and it's changed towards the back end of the season rules now.
Yeah, so the yellow cards, it might even be it might be on the turn of the year. They are reset.
Moves to 10 yellow cards, says Vince. That's right.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, so yeah, they've got plenty cards in the bank, as you would say.
Yeah, okay. Just give us a quick plug. Give us a quick prediction before we give a quick plug to Newcastle World.
I can't predict we'll lose, even though I've said I think win one, draw one, lose one. I think it's the toughest game of the three. Look, I'll say we'll go down there and get a ones each. And I've been saying it for the last couple of games, but I do fancy Chris Wood to get on the end of something and get a goal. He's getting closer, and I think we'll get a ones each. Chris Wood at the Newcastle goal.
John from QTech agrees 1-0 and a Wood header. Yes, does joining with QTech still go into the pot? Yeah, get yourself on. Just join as a member. That's all you need to do, mate. If you're part of QTech though, yeah, you're in the club. Okay, Newcastle World is where Liam works. Tell us about it, mate.
Yeah, NewcastleWorld.com. Check it out. News website, loads of football content. We obviously cover the football off with it being my speciality. Have a reporter called Jordan Cronin who works for us, so give him a follow on social media. But yeah, check us out for the news side of things. Toby Bryant, Imogen Holland. We have a really good team at Newcastle World. It's going to continue to grow moving forward. Really positive results in terms of hits and figures and the finances. Many people might have seen on Sunday that they were dotted around the city, North Tyneside, Gateshead, Metro Centre, Northumberland Street, everywhere there was Newcastle World branding. And that just shows that we're really starting to grow, and there's a bit of finance being put behind the project as well. So, and that all comes down to you guys as well, the kind of support that you've given since I've taken to this venture in the summer last year, and then as editor again in September, October. That I'm really humbled by the support that you guys have shown towards this project, and again, long may it continue.
Okay, great stuff as always, Liam. Thanks for giving us up your time. I'll be back tomorrow with the Geordies here, Geordies There programme. It's 3:00 start tomorrow. Got a busy day a busy night tomorrow because it is my birthday tomorrow. I officially turn 50 tomorrow. Thanks to everybody, including you, Liam, who came along to my party on Saturday. And I'm going to play out with the ads. Take care, Liam. See you next week.
Cheers.
Thanks to all our sponsors. First up, Spider VPN for all your internet security. Google Spider VPN. They are the boys to trust. They come up at the top of the Google network search. Thanks also to skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free and pay as you go. Waste collection. Thanks also to L&G Family Funeral Directors 01913897245. And to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD, hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. Thanks to Arcot Interiors. You can Google them and they come up at the top of the search list also. You can also find them on Heaton Road, and they are currently hiring and looking for fitters. So contact Arcot Interiors if you are available to help them with that particular trade. qtechshop.co.uk are the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and also the guys who run our website. Jab Signature, you can find them at jabsignature.co.uk. Thanks to Media Arts for all of our video editing. And thank you to newworkwear.com, the specialists in the supply and branding of clothing for the workplace, for providing me with my new jacket. And if you want to subscribe to the show, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner and you can subscribe for free. We still do 7 shows a week and we do some true crime stuff as well. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video, click share to your social media, and drop into the comments box to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans or to leave a question. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you put your phone over this QR code, it will take you straight to our website and you become a Newcastle and UFC Matters member. You get a cup, you get a pen, you get a scarf, and entered into our monthly draw where you can win some fantastic prizes. We also do live events, and each pre-match and post-match you can find us at the Dog and Parrot, and Super Mac gives us a talk about the game ahead. There is good beer, and there is good music, and there is a pool table, and kids are welcome. So get yourself along to the Dog and Parrot each match day in Newcastle city centre. We also support the food bank on this channel, nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. You can find the Matchday Bucket, which is operational 365 days of the year, and you can make a virtual deposit. If you want to find us on Facebook, then just search NUFC Matters. We have a page and a group. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, search Steve Wraith. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, search @Steve Wraith.